National Parks Week is coming up later this month, so let's talk about one of the most famous and dramatic mountains in the national park system, if not the entire United States. This is the Grand Teton, the highest point in the Teton Range and the namesake of Grand Teton National Park. Located in northwestern Wyoming, the Grand Teton rises to an elevation of 13,770 feet above sea level, but it looks way more dramatic than its height given the way that it rises sharply over 6,000 feet above the surrounding Jackson Hole. The Grand Teton and the Teton Range as a whole look so impressive due to the way they were formed. Simply put, the Tetons formed during a period of crustal extension in the region. As the Earth's crust stretched and thinned, it activated the Teton Fault, which runs along the mountain front, causing one block of crust to rise upward, forming the Tetons, and another block of crust to drop downwards, forming Jackson Hole. Specifically, the mountains formed through a process called tilted block faulting, shown here, which essentially just means that the mountains rise sharply on one side and then slope gradually on the other, and this is what gives the Tetons their dramatic appearance when viewed from the east. The dramatic nature of the Grand Teton makes it one of the most photographed mountains in all of the United States, which means you've likely seen pictures like this, even if you've never seen the mountain in person. But this fascination with the Grand Teton, and the Tetons as a whole, isn't new, as they've inspired people in the region for centuries. Native Americans originally called the mountains Tiwanaut, which means the pinnacles, but early French-Canadian trappers gave the mountains the name that they bear today. The story goes that upon first seeing the mountains, the trappers gave them the name the Trois Tetons, which is French for the three breasts, based on their supposed resemblance. In retrospect, this may have been an indication that the trappers hadn't seen any in quite some time. Over the years, the mountains were given other names, such as the Pilot Knobs, or in the case of the Grand Teton itself, Mount Hayden, but ultimately the Tetons persisted. In 1942, famous photographer Ansel Adams took this photo, titled The Tetons in the Snake River, which ultimately became one of his most famous works, and continues to draw people to the region even to this day. However, while the Tetons are famous for their dramatic east side, such as that shown in the Ansel Adams picture, some of the best views of the Grand Teton are actually from the west. In fact, I'd argue that the west side of the Tetons are actually home to one of the most underrated trails in the entirety of the United States. The Table Mountain Trail leads to the summit of Table Mountain, which, as the crow flies, is about a mile from the summit of the Grand Teton. When you reach the summit of Table Mountain, you're rewarded with this view of the Grand Teton, as well as extensive views of the entire Teton Range, but with